right?
Totally agree.
What do you think? And this is more just of a question of your experience. And again, is, now we have an administration that is shutting down the border, right? And so to me, it feels like the right choice. But then this ripple effect goes downward into the cartel side of things. And I'm curious to see what happens there. But then it starts to raise the question, like, was there some kind of agreement plan? And I don't want to be conspiracy by any means, but it just feels very odd that the cartels have been able to kind of run wild however they wanted to, and now they can't. I think we're going to run into some backlash to that at some point, which is okay. But for 4 years, we just allowed it to flow, and it almost feels like, does that mean there was some kind of partnership in the sense? That's a very crazy question, but I'm very curious to know what you think, in the sense of, like, we went from almost no rules to now we definitely have, repercussions for their actions.
I just want to be sure I understand what you're asking. So What you're saying is that we went through basically 4 years of no border rules, right? Like, in terms of who's coming in and out. And so do we feel like that was a deal that was struck with the previous administration? Is that kind of what I want to make sure I understand.
Yeah, because for someone like me who's lived both the lives of, like, the security of it, the law enforcement of it, all of it, I didn't get too emotionally invested in, other than the fact that I kept saying, like, what do you gain from this? Like, what does the administration gain from this? What does the country gain from this? And I found nothing that was of value. It found more fear. Like, this is scary, right? And so then I'm like, well, if none of us gain from it, the higher ups, do they gain from it? Is there someone in this decision making train gain value, whether financially or corruption? I don't know, but that's I couldn't come up with an idea. So then it felt like there's something odd to me about that. And I don't think that's a CIA thing. I think it's above that. I think there's something weird about not putting up some boundaries that directly help and assist almost the cartel in action.
I actually totally agree with what you're saying. And I think it's not conspiratorial in nature. It's human in nature, right? Like, why would we engage in diplomacy with another country if we weren't going to get something out of it, right? Like, isn't that the whole point? Like, that is the whole point. And I do agree with you, again, not absolving the CIA, but I do think it's way bigger than that. No offense to the CIA. I do think immigration and border policy it is political, right? Because different politicians make different rules and deals depending on what they do and don't support. I actually fully agree that the past 4 years under the previous administration, how we treated the border was unacceptable, like, full stop. Full stop. And it was sort of this, like, open field day, right? On people and terrorist drugs, whatever, coming through. And that is hugely problematic. I think that what we probably got out of it had to most likely do with goods, services, and lowered tariffs and taxes on our goods as a result of that, because I think money talks, right? And so I think from our perspective, again, I don't know. I obviously didn't work in the Biden administration. I have no idea how they would have benefited from that. But that, to me, is where it always goes back to, is did they then in turn make financial policies that we, the US, benefited from as a result of that? But then I think, as, like, a responsible leader, you need to take a step back and be like, okay, maybe we need to meet in the middle here so that it's not this, like, free for all. Because I think we had veered too far over. I personally think it was financial, what we were getting out of them. This sounds like callous to say, but I'll just be honest. We don't necessarily need intelligence from the Mexicans regarding, terrorism, national security, all of those things. They're not a country that we typically rely on. There are other Latin American countries that are actually better at it that we rely on. So I don't think it was to get, this free access of information. If it was Saudi Arabia, yeah, perhaps, but it's not. And so I think it had to do with stuff and money. That's what I think.
Yeah, it was. I just couldn't put my finger on it. And normally, like, I feel like I'm a very level thinker on this whole subject, and I kept thinking, like, I don't understand what the purpose is of this. I don't see it. It didn't make sense. And so it's just confusing. So now moving forward, we have this very strict, border policy, which I think is important. We have some leaders in certain places that are very strict on this subject. We're going after the cartel. what are your thoughts on the potential? And again, I know this is now just pure opinion, right?
Okay.
But someone who is, I mean, look at, you're in the space of the government for so many years. I think you kind of have a pulse on what the thought process might be. But what are your thoughts on us having potentially our special operations going into the country and potentially helping dismantle the cartel? You've done this in Iraq and Afghanistan. You know what that looks like. I've done it firsthand as well. I know what that looks like. What are your thoughts on that going into Mexico? Is it do you believe it's a good decision or bad decision?
Okay, that's tough. So I get asked that almost every single weekend on News Nation when I'm on air for them.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine. And I actually was on with, I don't know if you guys know General Wesley Clark. I was on with him. And I think he and I actually like both, I don't know, completely agreed, but like somewhat agreed that if we ever go in, if we do, it needs to be special ops, right? Like it cannot be, or CIA Special Activities Division. We are not going in there, full army troops. That's not what's happening. But we have to be very, very careful, because then the question is what if, right? Because like, let's look at Pakistan, for example, Abbottabad, where we got bin Laden. I don't think people realize, but like, had we not caught him, it would have been an act of war. We invaded another country covertly, right? But we caught bin Laden. So we technically, I don't know how crass I can be, but we caught Pakistan with their pants down, right? And so they really had no other choice but to be like, it's okay. It's fine. We won't strike back. Yeah, we're sorry, right? Like that's what happened there. I think we have to have that same motivation with Mexico, which I know sounds terrible, but there has to be that, or we have to get their government's buy-in to do it, which I don't think is going to happen. Shy Mom has said multiple times that she would not allow it. I don't know if she's going to change her mind. But if we go in without her buy-in at all, right? If we go in special forces